everyone, welcome to the UkeStuff channel. I'm really excited about today's video. I know I shouldn't get excited about making videos, but this is one that I'm really excited about. Today I get to show you the Hricane. This is their model UkeSW-02. It is a slim, what they call a slim tenor travel with a cutaway. And this is the Kala SSTU-T. Now, Kala does make a cutaway like this, but it costs significantly more in that body style. So, today we get to look at both of these, and I get to tell you about what I think about both of them. I did not know which ukulele Hricane was going to send me, and when I unboxed this one, I was just delighted because instantly I realized I've got this one, and I wanted to compare them. Now, I have reviewed both of these, and in retrospect, I would rate the Kala a little higher in sound quality than I would the Hricane, just by a touch. We'll talk about that in the comparison. So if you pull up both of those Uke Guide sheets at ukeguide.info and look at them across from each other, the only thing I would change is bringing the Hricane down a little bit and the Kala up, and we'll talk about that. But otherwise, I pretty much stand by everything that I said between the two. And you can see why, when I opened it, how I was absolutely blown away by the instruments and their similarities, and I thought, this is fantastic. Also, in full disclosure, I've talked about how I have a love-hate relationship with this instrument. I love it, but at the same time, for some reason, it's more difficult to play for me. It has more tension. Someone suggested I try concert strings on it. I'm not done that yet. There's a part of me that thinks, wouldn't concert strings be stretched tighter and thus there be more tension? But that's just kind of where it's at. And then I put the same strings, Martin 620s, on the Hricane. Now, the Martin strings are still stretching a little bit, not to the point that they're going out of tune like crazy, but just keep that in mind that the Kala strings have been on there for a long time and are settled. So, when I do an Uke Guide review, generally what I do is I look at the instrument first from an issue of specifications in terms of subjective things, and then I talk about objective data, and then I give you an overall summary. You have all that information already, and I have kind of like written some notes out about what I'd want to say and what I want to talk about, and there's quite a bit here for me to mention. So as we talk about that, I'm not going to go into every detail here today, but I do want to tell you which side I think is better for each instrument and what I think is the better value for the average buyer. Two travel ukuleles, very, very similar. There are slight differences, and we'll talk about those. This one predates the restrictions on rosewood, so therefore has a rosewood fretboard and a rosewood bridge, whereas this one was made right within the restrictions, which are now lessened for instruments. This one is made out of a walnut fretboard and bridge. This one sells, you can find them on Amazon for as little as $219, but the reputable dealers sell these like this for $289 new, and that's with a setup and everything, such as like with Mims Ukes. This guy won't come with a setup, but you can get it right now for under $90. And so if you just do the math like that. Now, Kala also has a cutout model of this, the SSTU-SMC-C, which means Kala solid spruce top travel ukulele with spalted maple laminate back and sides, and then the cutout. That guy is, if I'm looking at my numbers correctly here, is $349. So if you want the same look Kala, it's not just that $200 difference, it becomes more than that, $250 difference. So $349 if you want the Kala version of that. And that becomes significant really quickly. Let's talk about accessories. The Kala comes with a bag, which is kind of nice. There's a lot of Kalas that don't. And the bag is okay. I mean, it's made for the travel ukulele. It has kind of a neat texture. It has that kind of cool Kala logo on it. And it has kind of a neat foam padded inside. It's going to do what you need it to do in terms of travel. You've got two straps for your back. You've got a handle and nothing else on it. The Hricane comes with a gig bag, same general shape and so forth and purpose. Thin bag, same amount roughly of padding, maybe a little less nice padding on the inside, but it does have a little pocket, which isn't incredibly deep, but it's enough to throw a tuner in or a pair of strings if you're traveling, or a pick if you're a person that uses a pick. Just one strap, a little bit wider, but it has some padding on it and a handle as well. So realistically, I kind of like the Hricane bag a little better than I like the Kala bag, but I'm glad that both of them include a bag. The Hricane also comes with a cloth, some strings, and some picks. I do not think it comes with a tuner. So in terms of cost, in terms of value, the Hricane is going to be the winner. When it comes to build quality, so if you've watched my review of the Hricane, there's a minor flaw in the purfling, which to me doesn't bother me at all. I'm sure some people would send it back, but I'm fine with that. The real issue is a nut that is cut uneven, where strings 1 and 2 are far more close to each other than the other strings, whereas the Kala does not have that problem. However, the Kala has extremely tight string spacing, not even 21 millimeters. So if you compare the two of them together, it's kind of a wash. I would like this one to have evenly spaced strings, but for the price difference, I can go online, order a different nut for, like, you know, I can buy a nut and a saddle, even though I don't need the saddle, or a whole group of nuts for $10 and sand it down to fit versus spending another $200 to $250 for an instrument. Pretty straightforward to me. But when it goes to quality, Kala gets the nod. Now, also in full disclosure, my Kala has experienced a couple traumas. There's a good nick in the instrument there, but also it has a cracked top. And that's not unusual. I have a friend who actually did buy the cutaway version of this, went to Hawaii, was planning on buying a Hawaiian instrument, and fell in love with the sound of the cutaway Kala Travel Ukulele with the spalted maple back and sides, and he bought one of those. His top is cracked all over too. So I think there's a chance that Kala maybe even, you know, there's a saying that the best ukuleles are like an ounce away from just caving in and destruction. I think there's a chance that Kala actually went too thin with their soundboard on these, and thus that's why the cracking is happening. But, you know, I just put a little bit of glue in there and just let it, because I know I'm not going to probably be selling this, even though I always threaten to sell this one. So when it comes to quality control, the Kala is probably the winner there, with the exception of knowing that I have seen others with cracks, not just mine, and then the issue with the nut there. But it's a pretty easy fix to get them almost on par. So just keep that in mind. Talking about appearance. I think it's a wash, but it's going to be easier to change the strings on the Hricane. If you don't like the walnut fretboard and the walnut bridge, that will probably someday go back to rosewood. I'm not as big a fan of the walnut. On the sides, I don't mind it, but I'm not a big fan of the big sheet of laminate walnut. It looks a little, I don't know, it looks muddy in places, if that makes sense. I much visually prefer the mahogany laminate that Kala uses. So in terms of looks, I kind of lean that way. The Hricane has a pretty thick grain, whereas the Kala has a very tighter grain. And I think it's yellowed in age, although that might be normally a little more yellowish than the white at the Hricane anyway. But I think in appearance, it's generally a wash. I kind of like the different headstock of the Hricane. The Kala logo is cool. The Hricane logo is, you know, two things, so it's a little more visually there, but I'm not here to pick on logos or whatever. I will say that the sticker on the inside of the Hricane is a little crooked. I forgot to mention that in the review. And then you have the Kala logo inside of theirs too. So I think it's kind of a wash between the two. I think they both do a really good job with the purfling. They add that little extra strip on the Kala, which is nice. I like the look of the bridge on the Hricane. I like the cutout. They're very similar otherwise in body shape. If you hold them up against each other, they kind of follow each other's curves for the most part. So really in appearance, it's pretty much, you know, a tie. When it comes to availability, you can get these anywhere. You can order these from Hricane's website, Hricane, I believe it's hricane.com, or you can go onto amazon.com, or you can buy these at Amazon, your local music store. You can go to one of the reputable ukulele dealers. I believe that Mims Ukes, the Uke Republic, or the ukulele site will all sell these. Now, the one benefit is if you buy one of these from Mims or the Uke Republic or the ukulele site, they will set it up for you. Both of them need a setup. Both of these instruments came to me with action that was way too high. This one I bought secondhand, and it still had action that was way too high. The same is true with the Hricane. So either you're going to need to set them up yourself, or you're going to have somebody set it up with you or for you. So if you buy one of these for the extra added cost from one of those great dealers, they will set it up for you and make it easier to play. I also suggest different strings, but that's just my preference as well. In terms of playability, because of the uneven spacing on that nut, you might have a few more issues there, but I think that the really tight spacing of the string on the Kala makes it harder to play. And then I was actually measuring. The one significant difference is the Hricane actually has a little bit thicker of a neck. It's not hugely thick. I think it was 22 something millimeters versus 20 millimeters. And believe it or not, I think that the combination of the tight spacing and the super thin neck makes that harder to play. I've thought it was tension, string tension, and maybe it's not that. Maybe it's the entire tightness of this ukulele. Whereas the Hricane, those 2 millimeters in the neck work all the way around the instrument, making it a little more comfortable to play if only you get a nut with equal spacing. So again, I'm going to buy a different nut. I'm going to fix that problem, and I think this will become a really favorite instrument of mine. In terms of sound quality, I'm going to give the nod to the Kala, and I'm going to show you why in just a little bit. Both of them are made out of the same basic material, which is spruce. Don't know what type of spruce or where it's sourced from, and they both have laminate back and sides. The Kala has an arched back. The Hricane has an even more arched back. I think you can see it when I get in the light, the difference. So the Hricane even has a sharper arched back, or a more distinct arched back than the Kala. That's one of the differences. By the way, the Kala did not come with any strap buttons. The Hricane came with one, and I added the second to that. But when we're talking about sound, when I play the Kala, I'm getting, it's a little bit more clear, I would say. It's a little more bright, and I'll show you what I mean. Tons of sound, tons of sustain. Now, without talking too much, here's the Hricane. It's darker. There are high frequencies that are missing. Now, the Kala is older. Maybe the wood has matured, the actual solid spruce top. If I can play them both real quick. The Hricane isn't bad, but it's not quite the sound quality of the Kala. The question is the Kala worth $200 of sound quality? Is it worth $250 of sound quality? And that's something that you have to decide. Now, how about volume? Let me hit each one of these. I'll start with the Hricane this time. Open A minor 7. Again. Hear the sustain. It's decent. All right, and for the Kala, little more volume, little more punch in the treble, but still not bad at all on the Hricane. So in terms of volume, I definitely give the nod to the Kala. But the question is, how loud do you need to be? These are both loud enough to be heard pretty much anywhere you want in any group that you're playing in. So when it comes down to conclusion, I think it's up to really two factors that are going to have to make you choose. The first one is sound quality. And if you want the slightly better sounding ukulele, it's going to be the Kala. It's just slightly better. That doesn't mean it's light years ahead. It's just slightly better. So if you're looking for pure sound, the Kala is probably going to be the choice for you, and you'll pay the difference. And then that's where I get to the issue of price and value. For me, for what a travel ukulele is supposed to be, something that you can drag with you and not worry too much about. If something happens to it, it becomes replaceable, but you want a good sounding travel instrument, this is your winner in my mind. And you put the two together, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of sound for a savings of $200 to $250. So that's my comparison of these two. I'll play them a little more and end out the video with just some playing differences. Maybe I'll play the same thing on both just so you can hear them. But that's where I stand, and I stand behind that. For the record, I was sent the Hricane for review purposes. I'm not paid to make this review, but they did send me one to review, so I'm thankful for that. The Kala I bought secondhand used, I'm sure for over $200 a few years ago. Just so that you know where each of these comes from and you know where I'm at in terms of reviewing these. The Kala. The Hricane. The Kala. The Hricane. The Kala. The Hricane.